One of the most common questions we hear on the Caravan Times forum is how regularly should I be torquing my caravan's wheel bolts? Now that's a crucial issue for caravan safety, so to find out today we're talking to Richard Morse from Wheel Solutions. So Richard, tell me, how regularly should people be torquing their caravan wheel bolts?
Generally the advice is to torque them before every trip to make sure that they're all okay, and it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer, but generally the recommendation is between something like 30 to 50 miles an interim check should be done. That's because everything's sort of warmed up and everything's settled down, and it's just to make sure that everything's okay.
Now that's a lot more than on a car. Why do you have to tighten your wheel bolts on a caravan so much more than you do on a car?
The way that a wheel is bolted onto a car is significantly different to the way a caravan wheel is bolted on. The commonality is that they both have wheel bolts, but on a car generally there's a central locating spigot, whereas on a caravan wheel there isn't. The loads on a caravan wheel are also quite a bit heavier than on a car.
Could you briefly talk us through the job and how it's done?
Yeah, sure. The most important things to check are that, first of all, when you're putting your wheel onto the hub, that these mating surfaces are clean, free of dirt, dust, etc. Once you've physically got your wheel on, is to make sure that you tighten opposites. So pinch up the first bolt, get all your bolts in but not tightened up. So tighten your first one, and on a 5-stud wheel, if you miss a hole each time you do it, so tighten your first one, miss a hole, either anti-clockwise or clockwise, makes no difference. Tighten one, miss a hole, tighten until you've done all 5 bolts.
It's kind of like a star shape, isn't it?
Kind of like a star shape, yeah.
Yeah. And why is it so important to get the tightness just right?
Too loose, the wheel can move around on the hub, and through all the tests and investigations that we've done, that is absolutely not what you want. Too tight, and you can potentially overstretch the bolt and cause the bolt to shear.
And do you need any special equipment in order to carry out this job?
To do it properly and to do it safely, you need a calibrated torque wrench. We've taken a look at several commercially available torque wrenches, carried out evaluation tests of our own, and we've selected one. We actually sell a torque wrench ourselves now, which offers a heavy-duty application. It's got a nice long lever on it, so that for the amount of torque that you need to put on, you don't need to put an enormous amount of effort into it. You've got a long enough lever there so that you get it properly tightened up to the correct torque. It's nice and easy.
And you mentioned it's calibrated. Is that how you know that it's tight enough?
No, it's calibrated so it's sufficiently accurate. Generally, torque wrenches have a plus or minus tolerance on them, but you need it to be fairly accurate to give you the right figure.
And how do you know when you've got the bolts tight enough?
When you reach the prescribed torque, it will click. The torque wrench is set to the prescribed level, so we'll apply a nice steady even pressure, not bouncing up and down on it, nice and steady, even, until we hear the telltale click of the torque wrench. There it is. So that one is now torqued to the correct level, and that means that you've reached the amount of torque. You should not continue applying pressure at that point, because you've reached the prescribed level of torque. You should stop immediately you feel that click.
And then the job's done?
And then the job's done.
And I assume you have to do this every time you change a tyre as well?
Yes. Whenever you change the wheel, for whatever reason, whether it be if you've had the wheel in storage over the winter, or whether you've changed the tyre for whatever reason, if you have to remount the wheel to the hub, yes, the wheel bolts should be torque checked and on an interim, especially on a new caravan.
And to what extent does heat affect your wheel nuts? Do they expand or contract in the heat? What difference does that make?
Generally, the ambient temperature is not the main issue here. As you can imagine, you've got your wheel mounted onto a brake hub. Now, with caravans having got a lot more sophisticated in the braking systems, trailer control systems, etc., they operate through the braking system, so there's more heat involved. Through our investigations that we've done, and we've spent a lot of time working on this now, we've established that when everything is cold, then generally there isn't a problem with wheel bolts coming loose. The problem tends to occur when things start to warm up again. You've got different expansions going on, you've got different frictions coming into play because of the temperature that's involved. So this is why it's hugely important to check your torque before you set off, and also after 30 to 50 miles because at that point everything's warmed up, everything's settled down, all the embedding and creep and everything else has taken place. So you can just make sure that your wheel bolts are doing what they're designed to do, and that's clamp the wheel to the hub.